It's the U.S. Dramatic Competition. And let's start it off with the opening film of the festival, the sensation of the festival, Coda, of course, directed and written by Sean Hayter. It's about Ruby, a child of deaf adults, or a Coda. She's the only hearing person in her deaf family, and when the family's fishing business is threatened, Ruby finds herself torn between pursuing her love of music and her fear of abandoning her parents. Amanda, there's a smile on your face already. This is a delightful movie. Tell me what you liked about Coda.
It is. Oh, there's really not
Amanda
much.
dropped the 25 mil.
Yeah, I did. There's really not much not to like about this movie. This is just, it's cookie cutter in so many ways, but the things that make it unique makes it trump the cookie cutter aspects of it. Like, there's so many things that might feel like cliches, like tropes, like things we've seen so much, but because it is being told through this like a perspective that we have not really seen before, that's what elevates it. And that's why telling stories like this is so important, and getting that diversity, getting that inclusion out there so that people can understand different ways of life. Like, this makes me want to learn at least American Sign Language, ASL. And it's just such a heartwarming movie. I'm already a big fan of coming of age stories in general, so it already kind of ticked off that box for me. But it's just a nice movie of somebody trying to weigh the, there's this goal and passion that I have, and I'm actually good at it, and I have a chance to achieve it when I didn't really ever consider that for myself before, and being there for my family when I feel like I'm my family's only link to the rest of the world, where I feel like they need me, and in some ways they encourage, not necessarily encourage that, but they perpetuate that.
Right.
They perpetuate that idea that they need her, even though they did manage their entire lives before she was born.
Yeah, I think Art mentioned when we were live streaming that it's kind of analogous to the experience of the children of immigrant parents.
Immigrants, yeah.
The way that
being the translator.
The way that they're leaned on to play this role to help the family survive, yet they're a child and should not have to take on the brunt of that responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. There's a reason why they paid big bucks for this. I'm sure there was a bidding war behind the scenes because Apple took it. I thought it would have done well if it was going streaming with Netflix, but this is something that would have done so well theatrically as well if it doesn't end up getting a theatrical run considering the state of the world. But yeah, this was just nice. Like, this is the one, like, usually you walk away from a film festival with at least one movie that you can very safely recommend all your family members, and this is that movie, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, none of us chose this as our favorite movie of the festival, but I think if, like, every person in the world watched every movie at Sundance, this would be the number one choice, because it's a very crowd-pleasing movie. It's a very broadly enjoyable movie. I think the average movie fan is going to really eat this one up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I had a question. Was this the best ensemble?
So I don't think so.
Was this the best directing?
Definitely not, in my opinion.
Was this the grand jury? I'm putting you all on the spot. Like, I need to make this sign the deal off. It is a very enjoyable movie. I think that, it's the biggest hit of the festival. I'm surprised that with the awards they didn't split it up for more, different things. But there's a lot of interesting stuff behind the scenes. And again, it's like you said, you're finally able to tell what may seem like a cliche story, but from a perspective that's just not on screen. And it showcases how effective seeing sign language on screen, which they said it's not just English, but no, it's a completely different language.
Yeah.
Again, it has its cliches, but I think it's going to be the biggest crowd pleaser. I think that Apple is so excited that it won all of those awards because now it's going to be able to push it from its point of view. But the behind the scenes was very interesting in seeing how not only did she learn sign language, the director and the star, she learned how to sing. Yeah. She had not taken singing lessons either. So, there are a lot of sequences in this that I like. And it's definitely going to be the biggest hit because not only did it win all the awards, it also swept the highest record from Sundance at $25 million.
By a lot.
Yeah.
Record holder before
it wasn't
this
even
was
close.
$17.5 million and 69 cents.
Yeah. And I think that pickup from Apple makes a lot of sense because, like we said, this is just going to be a very heartwarming movie. It might even be in the awards conversations as well. For every one of its kind of like eye roll inducing cliches or very like middle of the road jokes, it has just a genuine moment of feeling like it's authentically depicting the type of family structure that has not been depicted in film like this before.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I think it's so full of those charming moments that it ultimately wins you over. And this is a crier. Like I was
It is.
I was in tears twice. So
Yeah, same.
The pickup scene for me.
Pickup scene?
Pickup at the back of the pickup.
Oh
yeah,
my
the pickup
god.
scene.
Oh my god.
That was the one for me.
yeah.
So good.
I do agree though
We
with
have
what
a whole video on this one too.
we're going to talk at more length about this one in a separate video. I do agree with Art, though. The fact that it was such this dominant force when it comes to the Sundance Awards is a bit depressing. Sundance did have a little bit of trouble spreading the love around this year.
Yeah.
And I think,
I would have loved to have
you know,
seen
that's
that.
something
Don't
that,
they usually?
they've been doing this thing.
And there was a lot of special jury ones too.
That's the thing. It's like, don't also give them the special jury award if you're going to give them the directing and grand jury prize. Like, come on, show a little bit of love to, on the count of, they did show a little bit. Show a little bit of love to Passing.
Yeah.
Passing got nothing.
Passing is actually the one that should have won directing.
I can agree with
Zach.
that.
Okay, yes. I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
I think you would also. Well, hold on. Before we jump into the next
we'll
one,
get there.
I would like to say that she did do a great job
Yes.
directing in
Yeah.
terms of having all the interpreters on set were also Codas. So there is that aspect where she cannot yell cut without the actors obviously looking at her. So I do think that she deserves at least a recognition. Maybe not my favorite win in terms of directing for the category, but that idea of having to sometimes go through a translator to get to the actor, and I do find that very fascinating. But I'm curious to see more of the behind the scenes and how they were able to work that out, because I know for her, the Boston setting and the fishing setting was like the director's dynamic. That's what she knew, and then they just took the comedy, which again it's a French comedy,
Based
and
on,
made it more of a dramatic American
Yeah.
film. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into I Was a Simple Man, directed and written by Christopher Mikado Yogi. As a family in
go, Zach.
Hawaii faces the imminent death of their eldest, the ghosts of the past haunt the countryside. This is a immaculately shot film. Some of the cinematography here is some of my favorite in Sundance. Unfortunately
Yes, sir?
for me, I felt really disconnected
What?
from the story. I felt like this was a very cold, emotionally film that didn't really open itself up in terms of what its characters were feeling and experiencing, and then it gets kind of convoluted into its the way that it's trying to blend memory and reality. I felt like it was really reaching for Uncle Bunmi, who couldn't recall his past lives. But Art, I know you liked this one.
You know what, Zach? I don't disagree with you, but it worked for me a little bit. I was excited for this one because it is based off of the director's grandpa. When he passed, he said he was there near his deathbed, and those emotions of like seeing him go and having everyone say that he was a simple man. And he goes, no, he wasn't. I found this fascinating because, again, yes, you are right. It is everything that you were saying. I think this is going to end up on the Criterion Collection just because of the way he tells this story and where he is not, like, the main character is the grandpa, but it's also the island. And again, I have been recommending this on Intercut, LME as well. I really like Cane Fire, a documentary talking about Hawaii. And I think that's going to be a story that more people will be able to relate to. And I think if you watch that and then hear the director speak about this movie, he pretty much said that the entire editing, the entire rhythm is waves. You get a little bit, you come back. When you go back to the flashback, you get a little bit more. So it is not something that we are used to narrative-wise. He based this entire, like, he went to Hawaii, breathed in, and he went, that's the narrative I want. Whatever that means that the island is telling him. And because of that, I like how he said, it is a story about Hawaii and how the island has changed. The repercussions the dude feels is secondary to it. But I can also see your perspective because it is called I Was a Simple Man. But it is more based off of the island. And the way that the island changes also changes this man's life. And you see that in terms of kind of like a narrative that then kind of becomes a timeless ghost story, which I see what you mean. But with the comparisons, it is very... There's a rhythm to it that's very slow.
Very slow.
But it's very methodical. And I didn't hate it. It does test your patience sometimes, but I did like the experience of watching it, and I thought it had some very beautiful shots where I was just wondering how they were capturing some of it because it felt like a dolly, but it wasn't really a dolly. And there's just some imagery where he's trying to capture the island, not just from what it is now, but what it used to be as well. It's going to have a pocket of people who like it. This is like a music box type movie.
Yeah.
Did you get to catch it, Amanda?
No, I ended up skipping it because Zach said it was so bad.
Look, it's not going to be for everyone, for sure, but I don't think it was like... I see what he was going for, and I found it interesting. Yeah. But again, I've like been studying Hawaii ever since Cane Fire, and then a couple of other shorts and docs that I've seen.
That's fair.
So it's like I've already been in that state of mind, but...
I'm super interested by Hawaii as a concept, and like it's like a place that I've always wanted to go, but then also recognize like how much tourism has just destroyed it. And the cultures... Yeah, okay. I'll check it out. It's how
it affected him as a man. Yeah.
I'm going to see if they might send a link. Maybe I can politely ask for a link.
Yeah.
Have them send you the Criterion Collection spine already. It's going to be a hit for people. Yeah. I'm curious to see what he does next.
Yeah. I'm just a little disappointed that I think the two of the movies that I thought were the most beautiful to look at, this and In the Earth, were not hits for me. But, they clearly were for some people.
Yeah. Users as well.
Right. We'll talk about another movie that I thought was beautiful and actually good in a little bit. But let's first get to...
You didn't like the dog? The timeless dog?
No.
Oh, my God. Oh, my...
All right.
Okay,
Jockey.
Okay.
Directed by Clint Bentley, this is about an aging jockey who's determined to win one last championship, but his dream is complicated when a young rookie shows up claiming to be his son.
Voices.
This stars Clifton Collins Jr., who won the Special Jury Award for Best Actor. You also have an awesome couple of performances here from Molly Parker and Moises Arias, who's coming for Chris Abbott's crown as King of Sundance.
I was going to say, man, thank you for recognizing him. Thank you
so much. I love Moises.
But yeah,
Monos, Blast Beat, yeah.
This is a really interesting portrait of a man aging out of his profession in a lot of ways. This is going to be the second movie, this podcast, that I compare to The Wrestler, because it's really...
I see it here, yeah.
Shows the physical ache and strain on his body as he tries to continue to go through the motions that he's gone through. And it's like The Wrestler, it's an extremely great showcase for its lead star. Clifton Collins Jr. here is doing some career best work. You really get the anguish and the struggle and the determination through this performance. I thought it was a really fascinating portrait of these people that maybe was better acted than it was scripted. There's a couple really awesome shots in here. I loved... There's like a really stripped down way that they portray a couple of races in this movie. And I loved how they were filmed. But I did want a little bit more from the script here, even though I thought the performances were excellent and the movie was good.
That's what you mean.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, it's just like really great performances. And then like how it came together didn't necessarily hit quite as hard in certain areas as I thought it could. I think it's definitely one of those things that like, the performances drive this movie more so than what it is, and it was maybe a couple decisions away from being like really, really great. But I did like this way more than I expected to. For some reason, I just looked at the synopsis of this and not anybody who was in it. So when I started watching it, and I was like, oh, Clifton, and I was like, oh, Moises. So then I was like really excited because of that. So yeah.
I like how when he first sees him, he's talking to this kid, and he's like, "You're from there? I know someone from there. What's the last name?" And he's like, "Yeah, Dad." And this whole relationship that they have between each other. I agree with you. I may like the story a little bit more, but I agree that it's going to be the performances that carry this all the way. I was really rooting for Clifton to get some recognition for this one, and I'm glad he did, because a lot of what is written actually comes from him. There is a huge, like the big moment, probably what would be the Oscar highlight, he wrote that.
Oh, wow.
Like they said, this was something that came from him in his backstory, with the director himself also coming from, I believe his dad was also a jockey. So his whole perspective on this was trying to tell people, yo, this is like cheer. This is a sport where it damages the jockey's body, and yet they come in and do it over and over until they can't no more. I grew up with Seabiscuit. Like, that's a movie my dad saw 7 times in theaters.
Oh my God.
So like I understand this world. Like, well, he also had a ranch. Like, we had our own horses and stuff. So I understand this world a little bit. yeah, I think the performances are definitely what carries it the most. But it is a beautifully shot movie, and it continues that horse festival tradition. We had, what was it, Mustang,
The Rider.
There's always going to be that horse movie. And it's up there with those. I think I like Mustang a little bit more than this one, and The Rider as well. But again, I'm really rooting for Clifton throughout at least the Independent Awards come a year from now.
And I think it was a strong debut.
Molly Parker did well.
Yeah, Molly Parker, excellent in this movie. And I think it was a strong debut from its director, Clint Bentley.
Yeah.
John and the Hole from director Pasquale Sisto. It's a non-traditional coming-of-age story set in the unsettling reality of John, a kid who holds his family captive in a hole in the ground. Starring Charlie Shotwell.
So much potential.
Starring Charlie Shotwell, Michael C. Hall, Jennifer Ely, and Thaisa Farmiga. It's a kind of quirky American outsider comedy in the mold of stuff like Chum Scrubber or even like a Terry or something. I think there's
not the vibe I got.
I think it has much more to do with American indie comedies than it does Yorgos Lanthimos, which seems to have been the number one comparison on film Twitter. This movie is not nearly
I don't get that one.
I don't get that one either.
It's not nearly weird or mannered enough to fit into the Greek weird wave. I think what this movie is, it's like a kind of more of like trying to be this sort of dark comedy about like male entitlement and the privilege he exercises in disposing of his family and taking over the house. But it's got one thing it does, and then it stays in that mood for the entire duration of it without really adding any elements. I think this movie is so blank for ideas. It's frustrating that he keeps coming back to talk to his family and literally says nothing to him, to his family, because I think this movie has nothing to say. You know, I wanted it to be much weirder. There's a couple moments like where he's like, "Tonight I'm cooking risotto." That made me laugh, but I think the movie needed way more stuff like that. Huge disappointment. Maybe the biggest disappointment of the fest for me.
It was one of my biggest disappointments because it's like, wow, with a title like that and a premise like that, like, how could you go wrong?
It's kind of like one of those stupid, brilliant premises, right?
Yeah. It should have worked. Yeah. Like, I would assume that if you come up with this premise, you found the way to make it work. And I'm expecting you to make it work. And you didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. The most interesting thing I found from this is that Thaisa Farmiga is the other Farmiga whose name I can't remember right now, sister, and apparently there's 6 of them. So I was like, damn, okay. So that was the most interesting piece of. I don't know. I just thought that this, like, there was like a few things I was trying to touch on, like the other aspect being like kids who want to grow up too fast and stuff and thinking that they can make it without their family, but it just comes so abruptly out of nowheres that it's like, I don't understand what you're trying to do with this. Like, I don't get it. And then like there was a moment where I thought he was going to like do something to an adult woman and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Art, you seem to be pondering a lot over there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's like, so this comes from the dude who wrote Birdman.
Yeah.
And I know all the psychology behind that movie as well. So, yes, this is his debut for the dude. But look at the kid. The kid Charlie Shotwell was in Captain Fantastic. Nightingale. The Nest. I know he could do creepy stuff because he was an Eli.
He's going to be fucked up.
On top of that, he was in an interview and he was laughing. He thought it was funny. He reminds me of, what's his name from It and Knives Out.
Yeah.
Jaden. He used to be Lieberherder, but he changed it to Martell, I think. Jaden Martell.
Jaden Martell.
He switched it up.
Yes, it's Martell.
Bro, that kid straight up goes, "I like taking these roles. They're psychotic."
Yeah,
this boy's got the same energy. Zach came up with something. Again, he said this movie was a comedy. So Zach's interpretation, Amanda, your interpretation, my interpretation of this film to a degree was. It's reversed. Instead of mass, instead of a kid taking his home life to school, it's, because we see it, his school life affecting his home life.
Yeah.
I don't know who's right. I don't know who's wrong, but I also don't want to diss the movie because this is the one movie where I feel it smarter than me. No one seems to agree.
No.
The only praise that this is really getting is for the whole consultant.
Lucy liked it.
And
Lucy liked it. Letterboxd Lucy liked it.
Look, this is the one that I will say. I feel there is something there. There has to be. the cast would not take something like this. Cannes would not select this film. But
Wait, did Cannes select this film?
damn, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It
2020.
did. Yeah.
Wow.
you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So it's like, I don't want to diminish it yet because it's just like, I just felt nothing was happening, but I didn't know if, I don't know, he's showing us imagery that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes down to that conversation with
not.
the mom.
I don't
like
know.
the mom's like, he asked me what it was like being an
Right.
adult, and he didn't seem to like that answer. So I think that it has a lot to do with that. And then him thinking, it's like he thought he could just kind of do everything on his own in life, and then kind of having that realization that like he does like having people around. But I just feel like that there was some pieces missing somewhere along the line.
I like the
there.
ending. I did
Yeah,
like
the ending. Yeah, because the ending's just kind of like. So, what
Without
next?
saying
Yeah.
too much, it was an interesting
Yeah.
exchange of looks that are given.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
A
also
little
like
bit
another weird
unresolved.
choice in this, but
I can't wait to rewatch it.
yeah, there was like another weird aspect to this movie that literally was established as they were like in the filming process and stuff. So I can't believe that this is something that's smarter than us when they added in an aspect of this movie like as it was already rolling. So I'm like, okay. So
I'm trying to have faith on
Yeah,
them.
I know.
We'll see.
Let's get into Mayday, written and directed by Karen Sinor. This is about Anna, who's transported to a dreamlike and dangerous land where she joins a team of female soldiers engaged in a never-ending war along a rugged coast. Though she finds strength in this exhilarating world, she comes to realize that she's not the killer they want her to be. You have Grace Van Patten, Mia Goth, the dude from Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, and Juliette Lewis in the cast. Amanda, what did you think about Mayday?
it reminded me of Sucker Punch, but not as exciting. And there was like another movie that I compared it to. It was like Sucker Punch.
Peter Pan.
Yeah, I said Sucker Punch and Peter Pan. It had that vibe of like it was the Lost Girls.
Dude, thank you.
yeah.
I said the exact same thing. You're the
Yeah.
only other person who brought up Peter Pan, and I was like, this is Lost Girls.
Yeah, it's like the Lost Girls. Yeah, I think I said Sucker Punch now with sirens and some Peter Pan sprinkled in. Is like that's what I felt like. It felt like the Lost Girls that kind of get something in their head and this is what they want to do and nothing's gonna stop it from happening and they're just gonna stay stuck in this spot. And yeah, it had moments, but overall this just didn't quite hit for me. Yeah, I don't know. What did you think, Art? Did you like it?
I did. This is also the only Sundance flick that's playing at Rotterdam, which is going on right now as we speak. So it's already been selected for a couple of other festivals. It's a beautiful looking movie. I do like the cast. I know
Yeah.
Mia Goth gets she's already got her little cult fan base as well. But what were we saying her name was? Grace Van Patten. I agree
yeah.
with you.
She looks
Yes,
like Shailene
she
Woodley.
looks like yes. But I believe just like from Swallow.
The girl who looks
the same
like-
way that she,
Haley Bennett. Is it Haley Bennett?
yes,
No, it's
and
not
just
Haley.
like she gets yeah, it is. See, look, I'm already falling into it as
Haley
well.
Bennett is the one from
I believe
Swallow,
these are
right?
these are both actresses who have like superstar actors that they look like, but they themselves, I think, are really good in all of the roles that they're in. If I'm not mistaken, Patton was in the Marowitz stories as well. And I think that she brings a really good performance here. I do
Yeah.
like the visuals. This is one where I do want to watch it again because there are certain lines where they say some stuff. Maybe not everything hits, but I think it's like we were saying, the Lost Girls version of Revenge. It is. It's a movie where I think a lot of people have been comparing it to Alice in Wonderland because they go into this other world. This is what I think they thought they were going for in the Blazing World to a certain degree, but with some
Yes.
actual community with it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I don't think it may live up
No.
to the hype for everybody. I don't think the story may be in everyone's.
Yeah, I was excited for this one,
maybe
so
what
I
they
feel
were-
like you didn't quite hit my expectations. So
Yeah. I had nothing. I didn't even know it was going to look as great as it did. I had no idea about
Yeah,
this
it looks
movie.
great.
But I'd be curious to see if this also plays at South by Southwest. They tend to pick up like 3 or 4 Sundance movies. I enjoyed it. In fact, I had seen this and Superior, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And I feel that may have boosted it up as well just a little bit more because this was like what Superior tried going for, but with a budget in terms of the way that they tried dissecting their characters.
All right, the next 2 films in the U.S. dramatic category are movies that we'll have fuller videos coming out on in not too long, but we'll touch on them briefly here because they are two of our favorites from this entire festival. First one is On the Count of Three, directed by Gerard Carmichael and written by Ari Katcher and Ryan Welch, who also won the Screenwriting Award at Sundance this year. Premise: two guns, two best friends, and a pact to end their lives when the day is done. You got Gerard Carmichael starring in his own movie alongside Christopher Abbott, Tiffany Haddish, J.B. Smoove, Lavelle Crawford, and Henry Winkler. This is a really interesting, fun mix of comedy and drama, very nihilistic and dark story about these guys who kind of act like there is no tomorrow because for them they've chosen not to have one. I really love this exploration of depression and friendship, and it's probably the most quotable movie from all of Sundance. So yeah, this was one of my favorites. Amanda, I know you liked it quite a bit too.
Yeah, this was definitely, I think by the end of it, kind of when I was moving everything around, this has ended up being my favorite, at least for the stuff that like is specifically like for Sundance and up for review for Sundance. Like Judas and the Black Messiah was like a work of art, but like this is the kind of movie that I just really like. This is the kind of stuff that really resonates with me because even though it's dealing with such a heavy subject matter, it still manages to be regularly quotable, hilarious, and at the end of the day is still a give a shit movie, which I love. I've talked about these before. I'm a big fan of them. I thought it was just, it's hard to, you don't want to necessarily call something like this fun, but it is a fun movie. It's like these guys are kind of like in this moment, and we talked about it when we did the specific review, where like nihilistic humor is very popular right now, and people joke about wanting to die all the time. And it's that moment of like how much of this is sincere and how much of this is just like your coping mechanism. How is this you just processing that information? So I think that kind of humor being reflected in movies is really important. And there's just some like really great moments in this, really great quotes. I ended up watching it again yesterday because it won an award. So I'm a big fan of this one. This is one of those ones that, you know, I will, if it comes out on Blu-ray, I'll spring for the Blu-ray.
Very cool. Yeah, Art, anything you wanted to add?
No, I mean, this was my most anticipated from the fest. I ended up really enjoying it. I wanted to love it even more, but I still thought it was a solid flick. The king of Sundance is still going to be Christopher Abbott for the foreseeable future.
So good.
Yeah, and again, I do like the humor in it, and just you know, I was happy that the Rami duo was able to win for writing, and I think that maybe on rewatches, I hope they don't change too much. You know, I know that there's some licensing stuff with some of our favorite sequences that I think already have been cleared, but there's many times changes that happen from Sundance to it actually being released. And as of now, I don't think it's been picked up yet, but
yeah, this feels like tailor-made for like an A24 pickup, though.
Yeah, that's what everybody's been saying. Yeah,
exactly.
I can agree with that.
So we'll see how it goes.
The other movie that we wanted to give its own video because we liked it so much was Passing, written and directed by Rebecca Hall. This is about two African-American women who can pass as white, choosing to live on opposite sides of the color line in New York in 1929. It's an exploration of racial and gender identity, performance, obsession, and repression, based on the novella by Nella Larson. It's with Tessa Thompson, Ruth Negga, Andre Holland, Alexander Skarsgård, and recent Screen Actors Guild Award nominee Bill Camp. Shout out Queen's Gambit. But yeah, this is just an immaculately made film. This is the one film that I thought was beautiful to look at that was also just a beautiful movie. The textures, the colors, the scenery, the atmosphere, the music, the sound design, the acting. This is just a really excellently crafted film. One that I'm hoping is not forgotten about as we move closer to the 2021 awards race. I liked so much about this movie. I've been tossing it over in my mind. Art, I know you liked it even more than I did.
Top 4 of the fest for me. Top 1 of the U.S. dramatic for me. I did not think it was going to be that good. I absolutely loved it. The more I think about it, the more I think about some of the subtext that they have, especially with the final sequence. I told you all about the book. The cinematography that Zach's talking about, I had a problem with it until I realized what they were actually doing with it and how they were speaking through the shadows of it.
What it's there for.
Yeah, just the behind the scenes of Rebecca Hall's own backstory and just what both actresses brought to the table. I was hoping to see some awards going to them, honestly, in this category. But I know they only do one actor award. I I just thought it was fantastic. I can't wait to rewatch this one again. I was hoping to, but it sold out. I can't even be mad about that either. It's a brisk 90-something minutes, just like the book is 90-something pages. And I think that there's a lot to chew over in this one. I think we're going to be talking about this one for a little bit.
Yeah. Amanda, any quick thoughts?
No, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that kind of sums it up. We talked about it in length.
Yeah.
When I finished the movie, I immediately wanted to like read the book, so that's always a good sign.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Superior, directed by Aaron Vasopoulos. On the run, Marion returns to her hometown in upstate New York to hide out with her estranged identical twin, Vivian. Struggling to put the past behind her, Marion lies about the reason for her return, leaving her sister in the dark until their two worlds begin to collide. This one actually stars a set of identical twins, too.
Yeah.
It's not doing one of those doubling actors things. I didn't get to catch it, but I think both of you did. So, Amanda, what did you think about Superior?
I think I might have liked it a little bit more than Art, just based on what he said. This is another one of those ones that, like, I'm immediately seeing the ways that it could have been made better, and that it always just frustrates me. It's just one of those things. I did really like the performances. I liked the story it was weaving behind the scenes. I know this is based on a short. I don't know if the short is better because I haven't watched that. But there's like a lot here that I wish they had just done a little bit more with, because it is a really compelling idea and story, and it could have been used very effectively to be a very like thrilling movie. And it gets there in areas, but then other times not so much. So what do you think?
The short's on YouTube, and it is the same actresses. It's the same set of twins playing what would be their characters, 6-9 years. I can't remember exactly off the top. And now that they're older and now that they're married. And I thought that there were a lot of moments in this movie that were really effective in terms of them taking each other's lives and them wanting to, the old, twin switcheroo type thing. The problem, I think, would come in that there are moments where, as beautiful as it looks, because I believe it is shot on film, there's moments where you're so invested, but you do kind of question how someone can't tell, especially when they're so close to one of the twins, how there are moments where the acting just, it doesn't come across as strong as they think it may have been, and you would have loved to see another take.
Yeah.
But I do like the energy behind the movie. I do like a lot of the set pieces that they have. Like Amanda was saying, there's certain parts of it that could have been a little bit better. I do look forward to rewatching it. I like the poster. I think it's really interesting. And I'm sure that they can continue on this storyline with these characters. They already have the short. They already have the feature. But they got to bring back the dude who works at the ice cream shop, because he killed it. He has this energy.
Are you saying
being the stoner dude who works in the back? Yeah. Fantastic.
Are you saying this is a candidate for the Blind Spotting Award for should be turned into a TV series for stars within 3 years, or?
Yes, they just need the budget.
All right, so let's get to the next one. Together, written and directed by Nicole Beckwith. When young loner Anna is hired as the surrogate for Matt, a single man in his 40s, the two strangers come to realize this unexpected relationship will quickly challenge their perceptions of connection, boundaries, and the peculiars of love. This one stars Ed Helms and Patty Harrison, with some performances from Tig Notaro, Julio Torres, who steals every scene he's in, and Anna Konkle of Pen 15. This is a very charming romantic comedy of sorts, although it's weird to call it that since there's no like literal romance in it, but it is about this relationship between these two friends and the type of platonic love that can develop when people become close. And there's something very sweet about this story that makes it hard to dismiss, even though I found it to be extremely slight. Like there's not a whole lot of there, but the performers are funny. The idea behind it is really sweet. So I kind of liked this movie despite not really thinking there's like a whole lot to love about it. Art, I think you like this more than the rest of us, though.
I did. This is in my top 3 of the U.S. dramatic. I'm not saying that it overdoes anything that you guys are saying it's missing. But it's a story about something we don't usually see. It is a non-rom-com. It is not going for the romance. It is just showing you how two people can have this platonic relationship. And she talked about the director, who I do think is funny, that this is coming at it from the perspective of sometimes you feel that in order to love something, that has to mean forever. And some people can't take that out of their mind and see that it doesn't have to be. Again, this goes with what I've been saying about a lot of the comedies, and with comedians are coming off more like dramas than they are the funny parts of it, and I would agree with that here. But I just like seeing their relationship on screen. Just two people who actually learn to care about each other, who do love each other, but don't need to have what every damn movie feels needs to be there, you know? And we had a lot of those moments in other movies in Sundance where characters go, I thought we were just friends. Here, it's actually holding on to that. I think, Zach, you were mentioning in one of our previous talks how you wished Ed Helms did a little bit more.
Because Ed Helms just perpetually, he just always feels like Andy.
Yeah, it feels like everyone's making fun of him in the movie, and you're like, yeah, I would too if I was in the movie.
But you said you disagree with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, he's just showing up for no reason with like Crocs or whatever else he was bringing in.
Clogs.
Yeah, but Patty was fantastic in the movie. She is someone who... even when, as a comedian, I've seen her and I don't fully enjoy the bit, or I find it hilarious, just her being fully committed to it, I always find fascinating. So to see her do a dramatic role, I thought she did a fantastic job with it. And I think she's going to be someone to look forward to in the future.
Yeah. I don't know if it's that I wanted more from Ed Helms so much as I wanted maybe more from his character, right? Like, I think maybe the way he's written is a little bit thinly characterized. And that's, I think, one of my problems with the film in general is it almost feels like the world doesn't exist outside of their relationship. It's really insular and about how they get along. I think I would have preferred maybe some more details, but I don't know, maybe not. Either way, it is a charming movie and one that I will recommend.
Different type of surrogate too.
Yeah, definitely.
Bleecker Street got it, by the way.
Yeah,
they got it, picked it up even before the fest. So yeah, this is definitely one that's gonna have a release date. I think I saw something about it maybe coming out in April, but I might be imagining that.
Okay.
Wild Indian, the last one in the U.S. dramatic category, written and directed by Lyle Mitchell Corbijn Jr. Two men are inextricably bound together after covering up the savage murder of a schoolmate. After years of separation following wildly divergent paths, they must finally confront how their traumatic secret has irrevocably changed their lives. I think this one is a pretty interesting story about these two characters and the ways in which their lives diverge because of this trauma, how different people handle trauma differently, how empathy is a driving factor in how you decide to go about your life, and the way in which manifesting your feelings about what you've been through can really hang over you and stick with you. I think this movie does a similar thing to something like Moonlight, in which there's a jump of time and it lets you fill in a lot of the gaps. That I really like that about this movie. It is extremely serious. I don't think any character in this movie smiles, but I kind of dug what it was trying to explore in terms of like violence and its lasting impacts on people. I think it's a fascinating story. Maybe a little bit slight and maybe needed to have a little bit more of an off-ramp towards its ending to resolve some things, but I was really interested by this one. I think it's a pretty captivating story.
Yeah, I love everything that it was going for sure, but I almost feel like when I felt like the story was really starting to get in, suddenly it was done.
Yeah.
It's like they abandoned the storyline that I felt was really getting interesting, then it was done. And I'm like, I don't know if I like how this ended at all. And I feel like there was so much more that could have been done here because everything is so compelling, and just looking at the way that people can shut off certain emotions because it doesn't even seem to affect them. And then another person, it will literally affect them for the rest of their lives. And there's no way for them to escape it.
That's fascinating.
I think you kind of feel like the movie should go for this interstitial feel, but it ends up being more of like a baton pass movie where somebody carries the story and then hands it off to somebody else, which is interesting in its own construction, but maybe not as satisfying as it could have been.
Yeah, I would have been at least fine with like another like 20, 30 minutes on this thing, honestly. So I
think what Coming Home in the Dark was aiming to do with those like that cycle of trauma that's come down. I don't want to say John in the Hole, but a couple of the other ones that we were mentioning in the previous categories, this does that, where it's not going to give you the story you think it's going to give you. It is going to give you the way that it plays out is just trauma coming to fruition. What else do you expect? There in the credits, and you see it in the movie, it's an early on scene. There is, as Zach said, not just a jump in time, but there is also a little bit of a look back at who is considered in the credits a wild Indian. And it's almost like telling you, look at this story from back in the day. Look at it play out now in a modern setting. And I found that fascinating. There is an aspect of this movie that I compare a lot to something that happens in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom with the character of Chadwick Boseman. And kind of this background to their, I don't know if you want to call it race, their culture, and the traumas that they keep with them, only to perpetuate them more and more, I guess. There is a storyline also going on with Jesse Eisenberg, who's in this movie, surprisingly. I did not know he was in this at all. Who tells him that he is the ideal person to be able to get this promotion. Yeah. He looks exactly the way he should. And the director himself, I know he said that this was the one movie he was going to make, and he was going to make it the way he wanted to make it. Then he was going to jump into genre films. I'm very excited to follow his career, and I can't wait to see him on franchise number whatever the hell, and looking back and being like, you remember that Sundance movie he made called The Wild Indian? I don't think it's going to get the biggest distribution out of anything in here, but I think we're going to look back on this one and talk about it a lot more in the future. And it doesn't hold your hand. Yeah. It just shows you this is what happens. What did you expect?
I'm really excited for the discourse around the name from people who don't realize who made this movie, why they made it, and that the name itself is actually a commentary on like how society treats people, and it's not concerned with being like, well, we can't do that because that's not the word anymore, but it's like, no, this is a person talking about his real life experience with his real life upbringing and the real situations that he exists through as a Native American. So like, yeah, you can call it whatever the fuck he wants to call it.
It also, they had the DP and the editor from Super Dark Times. I don't know if you've caught that movie, but a little bit of that aesthetic and tone comes in here as well. So yeah, you're not going to be bored with this one, but you may be left that's it?
I want more.
I want more. Yeah. Or you wanted it to be different, which is kind of the point.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So we've worked through every movie in Sundance.
Ooh.
If you've seen this entire playlist, all of it, appreciate you.
Yeah, shouts to you if you stuck with us through all 5 hours.
This is longer than the Sundance videos.
Yeah,
but it covers all the movies.
Hopefully we gave enough time to the movie that you liked out of Sundance. Definitely know what movies you liked out of Sundance. I do want to circle back very briefly to the idea of the awards. Given that I don't think the premieres or the spotlights are eligible for stuff like the Grand Jury Prize or the Audience Award. So. Is there a movie that you would have given Grand Jury Prize at this year's Sundance rather than Coda?
Judas and the Black Messiah?
Yeah, I would have given it to Judas.
I don't know if it's eligible.
I know it's not. It's not.
That's the thing. Well, you just said if it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I will say this. I do find it interesting how an actress turned director who makes Passing with a really good cast is considered U.S. dramatic, yet an actor turned director with a cast about a mass shooting gets a premiere. Is that a budget thing? Or is it just...
I was surprised by that too.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I thought Mass would be in competition. I thought that would... for me, that could get a screenwriting award or something.
So I didn't understand that for sure. But if we're talking just in general of some of the other movies that I wish would have gotten the grand jury, I don't mind Coda getting it. But I think it would have been interesting to see something like On the Count of Three. I personally would have loved to have seen Passing win it. That would have been really dope. But just definitely... dividing the categories a little bit more. I think one just completely swept everything, and I don't know if that has to do with the way things were distributed this year. There is a little bit of a difference with the way we consume, and I don't even know how many movies y'all rated, because it does kind of give it to you at the end, but we were also in a hurry to go catch the next one. I'm curious to see, to quote President, I'm curious to see how the election was done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you in that maybe Passing or On the Count of Three could have gotten some more of these awards. But, Coda is a good movie, so I am glad that it did get some of these adulations, even if it's maybe a lot for one movie.
It's like Schitt's Creek.
It's not like some of those other years where we've been like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this year,
like Schitt's Creek, isn't it?
I think that unlike the miseducation of Cameron Post, we will finally go back to having a winner that will make a splash. Sadly, a lot of the Sundance picks, for whatever reason, they get these big highlights, these big awards, and they don't end up even being the biggest ones out of the fest. So I think Coda's going to flip that around. And yeah, that one will definitely have an audience.
Yeah, I feel like that might have been an intentional choice on their part.
Yeah.
But hard to say. Guess it doesn't really matter to them.
Art, do you have a top 10 or top 5 of the fest overall to share?
I definitely have a top 4, and I'm going to go off the top of my head because my 6 through like 15, all of them can fight for spot number 5. But if I can remember correctly, I am going number 4 is, now I'm blanking on it. Hold on.
Pleasure?
No. Pleasure is like my number 3. Oh, okay. Got it. So I think I have Passing, Flee, Pleasure, and then
Judas and the, on
Judas and the Black Messiah. There we go.
Yeah.
You guys.
My number 5, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go for One for the Road, Coda, because it just warmed my heart. Pleasure, Judas and the Black Messiah. On the count of 3.
Nice.
I'll give you a full 10.
Let's go, baby.
From 10 to 1. Coda, then Try Harder, then Summer of Soul, On the Count of 3, One for the Road. My top 5 is Passing, Censor, Pleasure, Mass, Judas and the Black Messiah. It's got to be Judas and the Black Messiah.
Judas is so good.
That's great. My number 72 is... Dude, overall, do we think that the lineup was as strong as previous years? Is that even something that is up for discussion, understanding and knowing that the studios play a different game as well as filmmakers do?
Yeah. I got to say that I do think that this was a slightly lesser year in quality, at least in comparison to the previous 2. We've done Sundance now together as a team for the last 3 years. And I don't know if I necessarily blame that on like the selection this year so much as I do that when you whittle down a festival like
cut down to a third,
even though it's 70 movies, it's still fewer movies than normally play Sundance.
Yeah.
Fewer stuff gets in. There's less choice. I think maybe the combination of the smaller festival and that there's maybe fewer independent films in production right now. This was maybe like a little bit of an off year, but that doesn't mean it was a year devoid of great stuff.
Yeah, I thought that there was some like really memorable things, and honestly, it's all worth it just for Judas and the Black Messiah. Like that was just the one
catching when that. That calibrated all of my scores that I've been keeping. The moment that was like,
because then it lets you know, like, now I know how to.
Once you see that great movie, everything else falls into place. It's just like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff from the Sundance Film Festival. Even some of our stuff that wasn't favorite, even some of the movies that weren't some of our favorites are worth catching and worth talking about. We do really want to hear from you about what your favorites were, what maybe even your least favorites were, and what you thought about the fest overall. But yeah, thanks for sticking with us through all these different Sundance videos. Thanks for Amanda for sticking with us for 5 hours.
We're on our 5th day recording this.
Yeah. It's been so much. It's good though. I love talking movies.
Thank you. So that's all for this. Catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at ZShevich. That's ZSHEV as in violation ICH. Amanda, where can people find more from you?
You can find me on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and a lot of other places under Amanda the Jedi.
And you can find me at LME Explain over on Letterboxd, over on Twitter. And hopefully y'all have got your $10 full out pass for Slam Dance, because that's going to be the next one we cover. And you can catch me every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
Yes. You can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, your favorite podcatcher. I like Overcast. And then make sure you're listening not just to the audio podcast, but to the video as well on our video feed, youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can watch our bright smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Monday. Please leave us a comment, like the video, consider heading over to iTunes to give us a 5-star review. Shout out to our listeners in Argentina and India, the countries of the dog who wouldn't be quiet and fire in the mountains, for putting us on the TV and film podcast shouts out there. Like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. All of them are at IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from Amanda, from me, from all of our guests here on Intercut Pod. Man, if you weren't following us on Twitter, you didn't get our instant reactions, you didn't get our pithy comments about what it was like to do virtual Sundance. You're missing out on a lot if you're not following us on Twitter. So do that there. And thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, it's not entertainment, Mom. That's from Censor.